Hello, cult members, and welcome to Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
And I'm Josh.
And welcome to the Rebel Files, your one-stop shop for everything Star Wars, news, notes, wild speculations, and right now, not a whole lot. But we haven't done a show in, 3 weeks?
Yeah, we've been successfully isolating ourselves from the rest of the world, focusing on other things that we actually have to do. So
yeah,
it is what it is.
I think it was 2 weeks ago now on a Sunday, because I don't have other things to watch. I watched Force Awakens and Last Jedi back to back while Rise of Skywalker were still like fresh in my head. And I suggest everyone out there go out there and do a trilogy of Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker, and then tell me that they don't connect to each other. Just saying.
I get it. I'm still one of those people who really like. I love Rise of Skywalker. I still really think it would have been cool if they'd have done Colin Trevorrow's clip. I mean, either way, in my world, whichever way they would have gone with that, whichever way they went, I was cool with it.
Right.
But if, like, to all those people out there, if you're hankering for something to read, go read Duel of the Fates, which is Colin Trevorrow's script. Great script. It's one of those ones where I read it, I was kind of scratching my head going, why did Disney actually tank this? Because there wasn't anything weird about it. In fact, I think it actually connected to Last Jedi even better than Rise of Skywalker. But that's just my takeaway from it. But think of it as kind of an Elseworlds approach to the storyline. Go read it and enjoy it. It was actually a really, really well done script that I think it would have made a great movie. I'd love to see them maybe do a one-off alternate with it at some point in the future.
Somebody did an animated, like, 10-minute version of it.
Yeah, they did. They did like a kind of a cheeseball goof off of the script.
Yeah.
But it was super hyper abridged, obviously 10 minutes. There's a lot of little really awesome details within that script that you'd have been like, "Oh, that would have been cool to see." Right. But that being said, it did have a darker tone, than Rise of Skywalker. So I kind of understand why they went with what they went with. But I think if you read the script, you'll go, wow, that really connected to The Last Jedi exceedingly well and actually expanded on the idea. So, especially with Rey's arc in it. So, definitely just good at home reading.
Yeah. I keep not wanting to do it, but I keep thinking that I should at some point in time. I don't typically like the Elseworlds outside of the new canon. That's why I haven't gone back and done a lot of the legend stuff. Is I don't want to bog down my brain with a lot of that stuff. So it's just my personal taste.
It's personal preference,
Yeah.
It can wear you down. It's really kind of one of those things where I like, growing up with comics and everything, you get into a lot of Elseworlds, types of stories. The problem with Elseworlds stories, and this is really what it comes down to, you love reading them, but everybody's got their own flavor of things that they're into. So there's always going to be that one or two arcs where you're like, man, I really wish this was canon, and then it kind of disappoints you for everything else. So,
I'm really looking forward to the MCU what ifs that they're gonna do on Disney Plus, like that Elseworlds, or the Elseworlds that we got with Joker outside of the DCEU, like that stuff I like. Just for some reason within Star Wars, if it's not in the main canon, the modern canon, I don't tend to gravitate to it. Although I did read a bunch of those the Legends of Vader Dark Fates or Dark I can't remember what it was, but they were word of mouth stories about the legend and the stories of Darth Vader. So they weren't really necessarily canon, but they were within the universe telling stories about people within the canon. And so that I kind of thought that was kind of cool. But speaking of that, I finally, because of all of everything that's going on in the world, finished Fallen Order. Jedi Fallen Order.
So proud of you.
Not a super gamer. So I've talked about this in the past. I'm not a super gamer, although I'm about halfway through Last of Us now too. And Jiminy crimey, is that game good? But Fallen Order, we're gonna have a little bit of a spoiler talk here, a little bit. So come back in a few minutes. I'll wave my hands or something like that. Doesn't happen. I'll wave my hands around that we're done. But let's talk about Fallen Order for a little bit. Mostly just the story itself. Um, the gameplay is amazing, and I really like the adventureness, the Indiana Jones of it, and figuring out puzzles. Although I had to cheat a couple times to get online because I wasn't able to figure out some of the puzzles, so I had to kind of, especially the first couple, and once I realized the dynamics of what was going on in the puzzles, I was able to get that. But the story, tell me what you think of the story of what this game is saying.
I've kind of said it before. It's not necessarily the story we may have wanted, but I think it was the story that we needed.
Yeah.
There's really this whole separation a lot that, and we're getting little bits that are filling it in over the course, but there's always been this large separation of time that has occurred between Order 50, Order 66, Order 56, Order 66, and I don't know why I'm with the 50 Order 50. Anyway, there's always been this gap though between Order 66 and kind of where we picked up with like Rebels, essentially, right, to a degree. So there is this time period, and this takes place within that time period.
Right.
From what happened, Cal is a very interesting character in terms of the fact that he's very much in kind of the Kanan Jarrus type of things. He
right.
was a Padawan who escaped Order 66, who is just pretty much in hiding. But compared to Kanan and his story arc, they get into Cal having a very kind of a rough go of it. He's really like seriously in isolation, hiding every bit about his identity. He's wrestling with that. And then you get into the entire arc of some of the other, the Second Sisters and the other Inquisitors, which is nice. You actually see some of the other Inquisitors in this arc.
Yeah.
But you also get into some of the older cultures that have existed within the realms of the Force and everything else. It painted that character's arc and the people that they came in contact with it very, very well as like it's one of those ones where you're dealing with Jedi lore, but at the same time you're also dealing with those people who exist outside of the Jedi and the Skywalker arcs and everything else.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Man, if it didn't do this really nice job of kind of setting up some scenarios and some sequences that we could potentially see in other media, as well as connect back to High Republic.
I really liked the idea that, again, we're going to say some spoiler stuff for the game. I mean, it's been out since Christmas. I'm late to the party here. So, but the idea of what they did with the holocron, essentially the holocron, of all the names of the younglings who have shown Force abilities and stuff like that, and the quest to find this and then making the decision to destroy it so that it can't fall into Vader's hands or the Inquisitor's hands or the Empire's hands or anything like that. I thought that was really cool, but also gives you an opportunity to continue to tell his story and everybody else on the ship's story without having to be set in this stone that we have to go save all these younglings and going out. Now you could just do an adventure game and do it within the Star Wars universe with a couple of Force users and a Night Sister. And like I love the idea of having used what we know within the canon of Star Wars, and now you've taken that and you've kind of manipulated it enough to get it away from everything else that's going on. And so they can do their ragtag team of treasure hunters or whatever they end up doing. I really appreciate that they did that. I think it would have cornered them put them in a corner that if they wouldn't be able to get out of if they had done it and actually decided to go after all the younglings and stuff like that. So yeah. I thought that part was really cool. The final boss scene. So I went through that section, I think about 26 times or 27 times before I actually figured it out, like the combination, the timing and everything like that. And I am terrible at games. Is there anything else about the game that you want to talk about other than
I think one of the things that it really did a nice job of doing is you got actually into what happened with the Night Sisters. You got into what happened on Dathomir after the Grievous Purge and everything else. So I think that was definitely an arc in the story I wasn't originally expecting. And I think it was a really nice touch because it did kind of fill in the gaps and why you haven't seen a whole lot in the current saga about going back to Dathomir. In a lot of ways. So I think post, Order 66, there wasn't a whole lot going on with Dathomir after the whole Grievous thing. So it was definitely one of those scenarios. It was nice to see set up the characters really, really well. I love it. I think they've absolutely set themselves up for a second game.
Absolutely.
I love the aspect. I love kind of that combination gameplay of a little bit of Tomb Raider, a little bit of Star Wars, and a little bit of Mass Effect that it had in it. All in all, great job. I had a lot of fun playing with lightsaber combinations and being able to use those in combat, and the combat system was great. So if you haven't played it, man, go play it. It's cheap right now.
It's cheap. Yeah, it's cheap right now. I played it straight through. I didn't do a whole lot of the side quests. I did, at least a little bit of it to get the lightsaber stuff built up and stuff like that. But I didn't I just went straight through. I didn't go just on. I need to go kill stormtrooper rampages or anything like that, like I would do with Assassin's Creed or something like that. But I feel like maybe at some point in time I need to go back and do that and just do all the side things that need to be done, especially now that I have all the maps built out at least a little bit and try to figure all that out. And there's not a ton of it, but it's still fun to just run around with a lightsaber and shoot bad guys or cut them down or whatever. Let's talk a little bit because we haven't talked in a few weeks because of everything. There's been some, I won't say a ton. There's been some news about the ongoing building of TV shows for Disney Plus. Right now, they're in development for season 3 of Mandalorian. That seemed to be a big deal over the last couple of days. I'm not surprised nor shocked, knowing that they had gotten all of season 2 filmed before everything shut down. So I felt like that was something that was going to be in the works anyways, that there's a story there. I think Favreau or Filoni said they have a 4-season arc. Was it a 5-season arc? It was a 4-season arc they want to do. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Are you surprised that they're doing another season of Mandalorian, even though we haven't seen the second season yet?
No.
Yeah.
Cash cow.
It's going to be amazing when everything gets back done and all of this original content for Disney Plus is going to be dumping every few weeks once everything gets caught up. It's going to be a while till we get there, but once we get that going, you get all the MCU stuff and all the movies they're working on, all this the Star Wars stuff and stuff. The other thing about The Mandalorian that we got this last week was they're doing an 8-part docuseries of the making of The Mandalorian coming May the 4th.
Yep.
Which would be the same day that we get the last episode of Clone Wars, which we'll talk about Clone Wars here in a minute. But so we'll get the last episode of Clone Wars. There's also some talk that there might be a continuation of Clone Wars going on around there, but I didn't see a source that made any sense. Yeah. But the Mandalorian docuseries, I'm super excited because everybody talked about everything that they were doing on that set that was so different than everything else that they've been doing. And let's be honest, if they just do a whole episode of Lucas being on set, I would be totally...
And we touched on it the last time we had kind of talked about that they've shown snippets of how they were filming Mandalorian, how this is kind of a whole new way of filming. And I got to be honest, man, from my end of things, that was the coolest thing to see because the Imagineers had something to do with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because some of that technology is ride technology to a degree, so they were invested in it. Phenomenal. That changes filming like crazy. So I'm hoping they kind of get into a little bit more of that in the docuseries. So it's definitely gonna be one of those things that makes it worth watching.
The little piece they did just about how they practically shot the Razor Crest in the garage, in what's his name's garage. Like, just they just, they made a practical model and they put it on tracks and they like filmed it old school, and they
Done.
just like I'm super excited about that whole series. Another series they've been working on. We probably, I think I did read, it was 6 weeks from the start of production when they shut down Hollywood, and that's the Cassian Andor Rogue series, Rogue .5 series, or whatever they're going to end up calling it. And the big news that came out of that is they've brought on Stellan Skarsgård to be a major player in the show. So I find that very interesting to have somebody like him. Is he a rebel spy like Cassian? Do you think that's what that, or is he an Imperial?
I think he'd be wasted if he wasn't an Imperial. The guy's too good for that. I mean, we could easily see him as early rebel officer or part of the Fulcrum unit, but I really think he's Imperial. And not just because I've got a little tiny evil love in the back of my, head for the Imperials, but no, I think his character would make he's like, Giancarlo Esposito. I think he would make a really phenomenal Imperial officer, or something that's at least not necessarily a good guy. He's just got that character.
And he does have an accent. Now, I would argue that Imperials in the past have all had British accents, but we got Giancarlo Esposito in this last season, and he didn't have much of an English accent, although he does have an accent. And Stellan is Scandinavian, Norwegian, something like that. So I think he's from Oslo. I might be wrong, but he's got an accent. But I think it'd be cool to have somebody like him be a full-on, rebel spy kind of thing. There was a character that somebody was saying online, and I can't remember who it was, but it could be. It was interesting that they, like, we've got this, and then all of a sudden everything happened, and like all the talk for the Cassian series has gone away. Like it's kind of.
I don't think it has. 100%. I think we're getting seeds of information, and here's the reason why I say that is because they talked, like, I think the other day it was on Star Wars News, they were talking about Rosario Dawson's casting,
right?
And her contract as far as what it basically is, and it is said that she is done. I think it was a multi-episode or multi-series contract.
I saw multi-series, yeah.
I saw multi-series, so I almost am. I'm willing to bet my right shoe that she's not just going to appear in Mandalorian 2. She's going to appear in Cassian Andor because of the whole Fulcrum tie-in.
Fulcrum thing. That would be that would be cool.
Yeah. The only weird part about that in that theory, is they could potentially de-age her, but that happens quite some time before Mandalorian. At least give roughly about 8 to 10 years before that. So I want to say that if they are going to have her appear in Cassian Andor as Ahsoka within the Fulcrum thing, I think it would be a smart move. It would help tie everything together.
Yeah.
But then there's that part of me that says, I don't know if the age is going to match.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think the Cassian series, because there hasn't been a ton of talk. There's been more talk about the Kenobi series going on than there has been the Cassian series, other than Diego Luna and Alan Tudyk are both coming back, and it's going to be pre-Rogue One. But I'm more excited about this show right now than I am probably Kenobi, based on we just don't hear much about it. We're just not hearing a ton of news about it, either good nor bad. Like it's the Kenobi stuff. They got a new showrunner and a new writer, and so that one kind of makes me a little nervous. And they brought, can't remember the guy's name, who came in and helped tidy up Rogue One. He came in and I'm trying to read in the article if it says. No, it doesn't. But yeah, it's. I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see what. Tony Gilroy. There we go. I found it. All right. Tony Gilroy is the one who came in and helped re-envision the final act of Rogue One, and he's going to be the showrunner on this. And he has admitted in public on multiple occasions he is not a Star Wars guy. He understands its importance and everything like that, but he's coming to it as a story, as a cool story, and that's why I'm like, I'm okay that a non-Star Wars guy is coming in, because he finds the story itself really interesting. So I'm excited about that. The last little bit of TV news that we got before we get into Clone Wars is it came out today that there is the showrunner from Russian Doll, Leslie Headland, is working on, now of course Vanity Fair is going to give me, okay, it's Variety. She is working on a female-led Star Wars show. There's no details of anything right now, but it's a different part of the Star Wars timeline than other projects we have going on. So it's if you take that information, it's probably not going to be Ahsoka. I guess we can wildly speculate here, since all we know is a female-centric story.
Yeah. So I know we talked about that this morning. You actually sent it to me because I hadn't actually seen the article yet when you sent it over to me. And, reading that, and they're like, kind of my first reaction was female-led series, Ahsoka. And then, you read the article, and it's like, oh, different timeline. Okay, where's that going to potentially take us? I think the door's wide open.
It's not a different timeline. It's a different part of the timeline.
Part of the timeline that we have currently seen.
Than other projects. The wording, that's why I was like, the wording is very weird. It takes place in a different part of the Star Wars timeline than other projects.
And the question that leads to is cinematic, TV, book. Which projects are they referring to?
Right.
Because they're dealing with some female characters that they could obviously tie in. Now, does that mean it's something with Rey in the future? Does that mean it's something with Old Republic and maybe some, wild speculation, character like Satele Shan that's going to lead into High Republic? Is it the female Jedi who's leading the High Republic story arc?
Right.
It could be anywhere with this, really, at this point,
I find it interesting that Variety's usually pretty good about this stuff, and so yeah. I'm going to trust them on this. I find it interesting that this information came out either way right now, knowing that we have Mandalorian season 2, we have the Cassian story that we were just talking about, we have Kenobi, we have Mandalorian season 3. It's almost like it's like they're throwing the idea out there. How does everybody feel about a female run show, a female led show, and it not being Ahsoka, or it not being young Leia? That's a really interesting point. That just popped in my head. If you did Claudia Gray's book, Leia, Princess of Alderaan, she's 16, 17 in that book, working in the younger Senate, I think is how they word it. That would be very interesting, because everyone wants Millie Bobby Brown to play a young Leia, and you could do Star Wars politics you could do a young adult series to bring in that younger female dynamic that we really don't have storytelling wise in the universe. And you could do Star Wars politics. Star Wars politics can be really, really well done. And can be super interesting. I find that could be a very interesting thing, because that's not necessarily within any projects that are going on right now. That timetable doesn't fit with any project that's going on right now.
No, and it is true. That's absolutely it. I don't know if I'm going to agree that politics is fun, but there was good stuff with the Leia books. that they did cover, because there is some political infrastructure within the Star Wars universe that is vital to the events that actually transpire.
Right.
I hope it's a page turner, because most politic books, even with Leia attached to it, I don't know how fly off the shelf that would be, but I do agree with you. I think that could definitely be an angle that they're talking about doing. It's definitely a time period they haven't explored. They've touched on it in bits and pieces here and there in a couple of series, but they've never really gotten heavy into her past outside of the books.
Outside the books, and they really touched on it the most cinematically in The Rise of Skywalker with her training with Luke.
Right.
And it would be interesting to, if you're going to do that kind of thing, to have her learning about the rebellion secondhandly, which is pretty much what that Leia book is talks about, is her trying to help out planets that are being oppressed by the Empire and stuff like that, and her stumbling upon the Organas working on trying to build the rebellion. And that's how we get Crate in the Star Wars universe. Is that's the base that they're actually building in that book. And so if you were to do a young Leia series, again, with a topic that we haven't really talked about much inside canon, I think that would be a lot of fun. Or it could be, like we were talking about earlier today, the character that's going to be kind of the head of the main focus of the first of the High Republic books. Again, a young adult show, or Lucas always talked about how Clone Wars, the show grew up with the audience, and so they tried to get young kids in the first couple of seasons, and then as it got older, they taught older stories and stuff like that as they went along. They did the same thing with Rebels, so it'd be interesting if they were to try to do that, because right now Mandalorian isn't for kids. Cassian is not going to be for kids. Kenobi is not for kids, and Resistance is gone, and so it would make sense if they were going to do a live action young adult teaching life stories and have it be a female antagonist in the storyline. I think that makes sense. I could be.
You heard it here first, folks. The Ewok Adventure is getting a modern update with a female lead, just so we can get the kids. Sorry, I had to take that pot shot. It was right there. It was right there. But no, seriously, no. But seriously though, you hit it right on the point though. They I'll be honest, dude. Resistance, It
was okay.
It was all right. It was a casual Saturday morning cartoon. But that being stated, our Saturday morning cartoons had better plot lines. It was okay. They were trying to pack too much into it. It was a cool offshoot of something else within the Star Wars universe that I thought was pretty cool. That being stated, it wasn't hyper well executed, I don't think. I don't think they got heavy into the stories and the lore that they could have. But that all things being said, another thing that's not part of the current timelines is that 30-year gap. Well, let me rephrase that. Mandalorian's in that 30-year gap after the fall of the Empire, but we still have that kind of that 30-year period between that and Force Awakens. So there's still plenty of ground that can be covered within that time frame.
Yeah, that could be interesting to go in there and poke around in what the universe is like after the fall of the Empire, and everybody's on their own, kind of trying to figure out how to make it in the world, and that could be. Anyways,
I think realistically, to kind of tie it up, I think what it'll probably end up being is if they are going to do a young adult, you'll probably see something that's in the Forces of Destiny ilk, without necessarily that'll have a long-standing plot line that will probably deal with younglings, probably potentially a female youngling who's Force sensitive. We'll probably see something similar to that. So
that makes sense. I like all of the ideas we came up. It's go pitcher from us. We're gonna give all the ideas to Disney. Let's talk. We're not. Are you caught up on Clone Wars? Okay.
Religiously.
I would like to talk about the Ahsoka 4 arc 4-episode arc that we got on the Spice Run, whatever. We talked about the Bad Batch. It was cool and all, but it was really weird to start with the Bad Batch, and it was okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't okay. The Ahsoka picking up right from her leaving the Jedi Order and finding the Martinez sisters and figuring out in the world that it's not all cut and dry, and it's reinforcing her belief in the leaving this Jedi Order. But I don't believe I'm going to say this. I really didn't like this 4-episode arc. I really didn't like it. Like, I understand what they were trying to do. It just felt like it felt like 4 filler episodes, and I don't know. How did you feel about this arc?
It was to a degree. There were elements of it that I thought were really, really cool to see. I did feel that it was filler for the most part. They're trying to build up a backstory that's going to tie into the road. And if you really have to sit down, they had the end game already, and then they realized they kind of wanted to make a whole season out of it, so they kind of backtracked and did some filler stuff. The stuff with the Martez sisters, I really thought was it was very solo. Which was cool in a sense. I've always thought the Pikes made kind of an interesting species in Star Wars. They're really odd looking. They're twisted. They're a complete crime syndicate. I think it was absolutely 100% well done of them to provide backstory for the fact that, look, man, the Jedis are not perceived to be the saviors of the galaxy by everyone, kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I also liked the nod to 1313, which I thought was really cool because the Martez is on level 1313 of Coruscant, and as we all know, that was the abandoned Star Wars game that was going to deal with the underworld on Coruscant. So really nice nod there. I love the fact that they were like, look, the Jedis might be saviors to other people, but we're not exactly the biggest fans of them because they carry this giant, batch of collateral damage with them. And they don't realize what they're doing to the rest of the populations and everything else. And I like, man, dude, that hit me hard with that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, look, now you're actually bringing in the hard topic about the Jedis to other kids and people who, like, a lot of us have, like, always speculated about this for years, but now it's like it's up front in your face.
Yeah.
So while it was kind of forced episodic and everything else, I think it helped establish in that last episode, anywhere, second to last episode, the Mandalorians finding Ahsoka, or Sabine finding Ahsoka.
It was Bo-Katan.
Felt a little random to me. Bo-Katan felt a little random to me. Sabine's mother was there. It felt a little random that, like, why are they on there? So, but yeah, not my favorite, but I understand the plot points they put there. But they could have worked that into one episode.
I think they could have done that. I think they could have done that in a 2-episode arc and been. Yeah. There was the whole prison escape that was 1 episode, and it was like
useless.
It was fun to watch, but you're not telling me anything. At least with the couple of middle ones in the Bad Batch, you're at least telling me stuff. And like everything that we got was important for Ahsoka's story and the story of everything that's going on in this particular point in Star Wars was told in the first episode and the last episode. And so those like going on a spice run that nobody knew was a spice run, and okay, I understand what's going on here. I was really looking forward to that arc because we've talked about our love of Ahsoka around here. So I was really looking forward to that whole arc, and it didn't really live up to anything that I was hoping it would give us. Now, that being said, this first episode going into the Siege of Mandalore with Bo-Katan and the Ahsoka and Anakin meeting and all of that. Okay, if every episode's going to be like that for the rest of the way, it's going to be rough.
Well, you knew something was going to be different when the credits rolled.
Yeah.
Because it was a completely different opening sequence, so you're like, oh, you changed the opening sequence. Well, hello. You know,
opening sequence, and the music was different, and like like everything. Everybody's talked about it online. The last meeting between Anakin and Ahsoka, and Anakin giving her back her lightsabers. I just reread the book. I just read Ahsoka's book like 2 weeks ago. So I know what's coming from Ahsoka's side, and I know what's coming from Anakin's side. And so that scene got over, and I got on Facebook, and I'm like, are you kidding me, Clone Wars? I'm in an emotionally compromised state as it is right now, and then you throw that in my face.
Yeah,
but
that moment was definitely good. That, and especially leading up to the whole, her coming off the crap, her coming off the ship and being kind of like just, we'll exchange pleasantries later.
Yeah.
I was like,
yes, and Rex calling her commander, even though she said I'm not commander anymore, and
that's what got me.
That one, and then she walks in, and they're all dressed in her colors, which was in the trailer, but still, like, right. There was a TeePublic shirt that popped up, and it was one of the clone helmets painted as Ahsoka's unit, that I was like, oh, okay, all right, I gotta have another freaking Star Wars shirt, because I only have like 10 as it is right now. But that episode really got me. Now we got 3 episodes left. And knowing that the last one's dropping on May 4th, so I know they have to set up some stuff. I think Order 66 is going to happen not in the next episode, but the 3rd episode, and then
it's got to happen within the next 2. And the only reason I say that is because they've they've shown Aayla Secura on Felucia. They've shown Plo Koon, they're set up for, they're literally almost in their positions that they're in when Order 66 occurs.
Yeah.
And get waxed. So here's the thing that's weird for me. So they're on their way back to Coruscant right now. At the end of the episode, they're going back to assist in Coruscant while the Siege of Mandalore is going on.
Yep.
When they get back to Coruscant, this is where it goes down.
Yep.
This is where the turn happens. So man, I'm like,
there was a meme. There was a meme going around. It was the shot of Kenobi before he leaves Anakin and Ahsoka to say, "Hey, we're going." And so there's that shot, and then the other shot is Kenobi in Revenge of the Sith. Where he's going to go talk to Padme. That time period right there is 5 days. Mm-hmm. So we know exactly where we're at in that story. So it's like watching a train wreck. I can't turn away. I know what's coming, but I can't turn away.
That's rough.
But Order 66 has got to be in the next 2 episodes. And then the idea of setting up everything after, having one like kind of wrap up episode of putting everybody in place going forward. And I think that would be kind of interesting. And I know that Sam Witwer has been talking about, he's seen the whole Siege of Mandalore arc. He hasn't said anything other than wow. So if we get wow, I'm willing to forgive the episodes that we got with Ahsoka and on her arc and on Coruscant and the Spice Run and stuff like that. So, but I'm sitting with bated breath about where we're gonna be and what's gonna happen.
These last 4 episodes, realistically, if you want to even call it, they're time wise, they're going to basically be their own movie. This last 4 episode arc is going to be essentially its own movie in time length, and it's fitting that they actually rolled the credits differently now, and they've actually made it, because it almost makes it a companion film like Rogue One or Solo. So we'll call it Revenge of the Sith 0.5. So but it's kind of what it is. Yeah, it would, even on its own, even if you just watched the Clone Wars movie, then probably watch this Final Four arc, and then Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is everything that we wanted to talk about this week. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that's going on? I think that's kind of it. Like we were talking about
Star Wars wise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like we said, it's been interesting, like trying to deal with news. There's been some other film news stuff that came out this week about Venom and some movies that are coming out and stuff that's in the works and the changing of schedule and stuff like that. But Star Wars wise, there hasn't been a ton. And the Star Wars show this week in Star Wars, even they've been struggling with stuff. And so it's legit, like everywhere, everybody's having to deal with it. A lot of the other podcasts are doing a really good job of having longer discussions. We will try to do some of that stuff too, now that some of the craziness has kind of gone away, and some of our work schedules have gotten lightened up a little bit. Not on my end, but
been a fun 2 weeks.
Yeah. So we'll continue to do stuff as much as we can and have discussions about Star Wars, because not much else going on right now. So like always, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, follow us on all the social media stuff, Facebook, Instagram, and sometimes Twitter. I still don't understand Twitter. I just don't get it. It's weird. Maybe TikTok at some point in time. I don't know. My wife's addicted to it, so I don't know.
It's a hard no, Bob. Sorry.
I passed too. So until next time, cult members, I'm one with the Force.
And the Force is with us. Take care.